I got about a 3-page introduction here, but this poor guy's been sitting here for a long time, and I'm going to shorten it down to 3 lines. John Gallagher started climbing up Mount Diablo on his bicycle from Berkeley many years ago. I think he was 14 when he first started doing that. He still does that, only he lives here now. It's a shorter distance. He loves the mountain. He's one of the 3 Beacon Boys. These are people, he will explain the terminology and what they've done, but they've saved Mount Diablo's beacon for the next 100 years. You know what its story is. It will only turn on one day a year, on that special day. So, without all the rest of this, please welcome John Gallagher.
You should have bought him that glass of wine.
Yeah. All right, I'm John. So I work with Save on Diablo, the environmental group. We're based in Walnut Creek. We work to preserve open space on or around the mountain. We have, it's a very active and busy organization. We have significantly, we do work looking at the bottom to preserve the area around the mountain. We defend it, the foothills around the mountain. We do a lot of restoration of the property around the mountain. And last and definitely not least, down at the bottom there, we enjoy it. We do take every opportunity we can to get on or around the mountain whenever we possibly can. And as we enjoy the mountain, we also look to see how much has been conserved for you and me, for the population around here. Significantly, in what I'm going to talk about with the beacon, is this first little graphic. In 1931, when the first property was acquired for the new Mount Diablo State Park, you look at the center of the crosshairs there, and the little triangle, the summit was not included in Mount Diablo State Park. Only at the southwest there is Rock City. And the summit was not acquired at first. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. By 1971, when Save on Diablo was formed, the park only comprised about 7,000 acres. And that all happened before World War II. During World War II, of course, everything was on hold, as we all know. And in fact, none of it was preserved even after World War II, except for very small parcels. And by 1971, it looked like this. Save on Diablo was formed to try to recognize that something needed to be done. It was founded by a botanist who had done her PhD thesis up on the mountain, Mary Bowerman, and another fellow, Art Bonwell, who did a lot of the nuts and bolts of forming the organization. By 1986, you can see how it has grown. Up at the upper right there in the northeast, Black Diamond Mines had happened, and the reason for that is our East Bay Regional Park District had finally started acquiring property for parkland. That started in the mid-60s, and they are one of our closest allies. We work with them oh so much. Just right next to Walnut Creek, you can see Walnut Creek's open space that had been acquired by the city of Walnut Creek. By 2001, we have Morgan Territory. You can see Los Vaqueros Reservoir in the lower right. Contra Costa Water District is another ally that we work with today. And you can see how this has increased so much. And today, we are so fortunate in this very populated area to have open space like this, where we can go for a walk, where we can have a view to look at, a place to go and have a little bit of quiet amidst all of the traffic that we all so much enjoy. So I know that's not why we came to be here today. This is about the beacon, and so how did we get involved with this? It did actually have kind of an interesting story, which I'll get to in a minute. But the history on this thing is kind of fun. In the 1920s, aircraft were finally being discovered sort of as a means of commerce. You know, World War I had happened, and now aircraft was a big thing. There was no radar, of course, and by the mid-20s, they were putting up lights all over the country so that pilots could fly at night. Before that, it was daytime only. There was no instrument navigation or anything like that. And so the Department of, this has nothing to do with the military at this point. This was promoted by both government, meaning the Commerce Department. It was not yet called the Department of Commerce, it was the Commerce Department at the time. The Post Office, they wanted to be able to deliver airmail. And of course, the aircraft industry was heavily involved also. And there were hundreds, and I mean hundreds of beacons across the country, roughly traveling what we know of as our big roads today, Interstate 80, Highway 99, going north and south. There were beacons all over the place. And Standard Oil of California was part of this. They financed the construction of 5 of the largest beacons ever erected up and down the Pacific coast, Seattle, Portland, Monte Diablo, Los Angeles, and San Diego. These were particularly large beacons. Again, there were hundreds and hundreds of other ones, some as small as an acetylene flame. Seriously. But you know, if you're out at night and it's real dark, an acetylene flame would function. And so there was quite a bit of fanfare when these were erected. You can see the postage stamp there at the lower left, the lower right, big article in the San Francisco Chronicle. At the upper left is our beacon. It was originally up on a 70-foot tower right at the west end of the upper parking lot. Has everybody been to the summit?
Yes.
If you haven't, shame on you. This was right at the west end. You can see the SD, Standard Diablo. The S is 12 feet tall. The D is 8 feet tall. You can see the Standard Oil magazine there, their little bulletin. Any flyboys know what that is? It's a Ford Trimotor. They only made a few hundred of them. And then the photo at the upper right, again, we're going to come back to that. This is where the summit building was built. And I plugged this in because at the bottom here, that's the shadow of the tower. So it's an afternoon sun looking at that pile of stone that is significant in this story. So how do they use these beacons? By compass. So you can see the Standard Diablo beacon there under the star, and you can see the compass bearings to the various airports. So imagine a pilot flying up from Los Angeles, he would know where to turn left. That's how nighttime navigation was done. So this all started in 1928. Again, the summit of Monte Diablo was in private hands. Standard Oil had to get permission from Walter Frick, a businessman in Oakland who owned that property. He owned some 10,000 acres on the mountain. And then the Depression happened, of course, and the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, went to work. They built so many stone walls and drainage structures and the famous Diablo stoves that are up on the campgrounds on the mountain. They did lots and lots of stonework there. Most of them, I was told in one source, most were World War I veterans, by the way. And their crowning achievement was the summit building. It was started in 1939. In fact, they took the beacon down in 1939. And I have no confirmation of this, but I believe that the tower, the steel tower, was used as a skeleton for this stone building. It was designed with this turret that you can see here. It still stands today, of course, historic landmark. And the turret is exactly over the benchmark for the summit of Monte Diablo. Monte Diablo was and is used for surveying all of Northern California and Nevada. This photo was taken shortly before the completion. As you can see, the beacon is up there at the top of the turret, and the railing on the catwalk is just being lifted in by their fine crane there. We have a different crane that we'll look at in a minute. And I really love the OSHA-approved scaffold that they have. The windows that you see there that have obviously just been installed served for a fire lookout. And in fact, that room was a fire lookout. It's no longer used that way. So the beacon was relighted in April of 1941. April of 1941. Everybody was happy, it's shining again. And then there was a slight change in our history. Everybody in this room has seen this photo. And so Pearl Harbor Day happened, and of course, all of our lives changed at that point. We weren't born yet, I know. And so did the beacon. Now here's the log of the beacon. They really did, it was a big deal to have these beacons. They needed to be running at night for pilots. And it's kind of hard to read with the projector here, but you can see up at the top there it says, November 25th, trip to Beacon, 26th, trip to Beacon, 27th, trip to Beacon, and so on. And down here at the bottom, it says 12/8, trip to shut off Beacon as to blackout. You guys heard about that. The West Coast blackout started December 8th. And that was the end of the story, for now. Beacon was down for the duration of World War II, and by the end of World War II, we had radar. Now, those of you that have read histories of Pearl Harbor know that we had radar before Pearl Harbor. It was in its true infancy at that point. I did read a book about Pearl Harbor. It was thick in both ways that you think about it, and they mentioned the radar story specifically. But it was not in common use in 1941, but by the end of World War II, 1945, it was in very common use, and that beacon was obsolete. And they were not turned back on. None of them. And so it sat until 1964. And some guy named Admiral Nimitz, Chester W., who had retired to Berkeley. Everybody know that? He lived in Berkeley on Santa Barbara Road in his retirement. And he came out to the beacon on December 7th, 1954 with a whole bunch of Pearl Harbor survivors and relighted the beacon. That was a big deal. We are told that there were many vans full of veterans, Admiral Nimitz, and even a band came and played, a Navy band or something like that. And here's a request for all of you. We have not one photograph of that event. I have not even seen a fuzzy one in a newspaper when the beacon was relighted December 7th, 1964. So if you have a clue about where we could find a photo, I sure would like to see one.